Here, I'll go ahead and start sharing then. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. All right. We will give it just one more minute to see if anyone else jumps in. I think we've got everyone. This part.
All right, I say let's get started. For everyone who I've not yet met, my name is Vanessa Cullen. I'm Delaware State Housing Authority's Emergency Management Coordinator and DSHA with University of Delaware Institute of Public Administration, and with support from a private firm, Civics, are going to present to you today about the technical assistance program that you've all agreed to join. So I want to thank you first off for attending and for showing interest in this. I might be biased because I work at a housing authority, but I think that preparing for disasters as far as our housing stock and our communities is very important. And I'm really excited to take a proactive approach in doing that at the local level. So I'm going to hand it over to Colin to introduce himself and his team, and then we'll kick off the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well this afternoon. I'm Colin Willard. I'm an assistant policy scientist with the University of Delaware's Institute for Public Administration. See some familiar faces on here from some calls. So nice to see you all. And if I haven't met you yet, nice to meet you. I'm excited to be working with you on this project. I'm going to pass it over to Jen and then Danielle to introduce themselves as well, since they'll be part of the team too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Brights. I am a Planning Services Coordinator for the Institute for Public Administration and a land use planner by background, and will primarily be working on the ordinance portion of this project, but happy to be, working with all of you. A lot of familiar faces, just like Colin said. So, Danielle.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. Danielle Swallow. I know several of you, but I haven't had the pleasure of meeting all of you yet. I work for Delaware Sea Grant, which is a federal and state funded program at the University of Delaware. I'm based in the Lewis campus, and I'm on the extension side of Sea Grant. So I work with communities on building resilience to weather and climate hazards, and I'll be supporting this project largely through helping you with a hazard risk assessment and vulnerability analysis. So welcome and thanks very much.
Yep, thanks, Jen. Thanks, Danielle. Before we get started, I just want to go around the room. I'll just call municipality by municipality. And if you could, if one of you could unmute, just kind of share who's on the call and just introduce yourselves a little bit. So I see we have a bunch of folks from Milton on the call, so I'm going to start with you guys. Mayor Collier, Christy, you guys want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Colin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us part of the program and kickoff. On the call, we have myself serving as town manager, Tom Quast serving as project coordinator, and our mayor, John Collier, and vice mayor, Lee Revis-Plank.
Lovely. Great to have you guys. Next up would be Lewis. Do we have anyone from Lewis on?
Yes, Janet Reeves, the deputy city manager. I thought Janelle was going to be on, our city planner. I don't know if she is. And our deputy mayor, Khalil Saliba, is filling in for the mayor at another meeting. So I'll be doing a lot of briefing after this. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Janet. And then we'll go with Georgetown. I think I saw Brian jump in the call.
Hello, this is Brian Olzak. I'm here with Jamie Donaway. I'm the Community Development Director for the town of Georgetown and for Community Development Department, newly renamed. I think Jean Dvorak, our town manager, is coming on the call, but yes, but he'll be participating as well.
Sounds great. Yeah, and we're recording, so if if anyone needs the recording afterwards and can't make it today, totally fine. We'll send it out to them. And then we've got our Sussex County team.
Cool. Good afternoon, everyone. Jamie Whitehouse, Sussex County Planning and Zoning Director. Timothy Cooper's on the call as well, and Brandy Nauman are here, and the three of us are here to answer any questions. So excited about this. So.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Okay, so this will be our cohort. We've got the three municipalities of Milton, Georgetown, and Lewis. We've got Sussex County involved in the cohort as well. Going to be part of the whole process with you guys. So excited that all of you could be here today to join us. We're going to kick things off and just kind of set some of the expectations and everything for the program. So I've got a slide deck I'm going to run through here. Just to kind of kick us off, we've got, so what we're looking to do today is just kind of provide an overview of the program goals and deliverables. We're going to talk about program timeline and participation expectations. And then we have some questions for you guys. And I'm sure you've got some questions for us as well. So at the end, we'll open it up and do some back and forth and start to, kind of answer some of those questions. So some of this may be repetitive if you've heard from Vanessa at any of the other workshops that she's presented at, or if you've been following along with the disaster housing strategy. But just wanted to kind of level set so that we're all on the same page and that everyone's familiar with what's going on here. So we are here to work through the Delaware Disaster Housing Strategy. This is a document. It's a living document that exists at the state level. It's a scalable operational framework that just essentially guides our disaster housing preparedness and recovery efforts throughout the state. So this is implemented through the Disaster Housing Task Force. There's a number of state agencies, municipal and county governments, nonprofit organizations, some federal agency representation as well involved in that. And we have a link to the strategy here. So when you see the slide deck afterwards, you can go check it out. The full draft is published in its full form. It's posted online. It's available for you. So there's a lot of things in this disaster housing strategy. And one of the biggest parts of this whole thing is working at the local level on some pre-disaster planning and coordination efforts. So, disaster housing requires coordination between all these different levels of government. And the idea is that we enact some policies and procedures that are going to enable housing recovery processes that are safe, efficient, equitable, affordable, resilient, and sustainable. So the idea here is essentially to work with you all to help implement some of the elements of this disaster housing strategy. The strategy provides a number of key recommendations at a pretty high level. So we've highlighted the 4 that this program is really going to kind of be focused on. So generally, providing technical assistance to local and county governments to help enact some of these things, talking about potential siting locations for temporary housing. That'll be something that we talk about and discuss. We're introducing the strategy to you all throughout the state as well, to various partners. So the idea is to essentially just spread the news about the strategy, tell people that it exists, and tell people how they can kind of work through it and facilitate some of the goals. And then also, we kind of talked a little bit about it, as Danielle mentioned, but, assessing our capacity internally, both at the local level, at the county level, at the state level, to prepare and manage and implement potential disaster funding, and a lot beyond that in terms of planning and preparedness activities too. So, the whole entire disaster housing strategy is contextualized within this housing recovery continuum framework. And so this is what we're going to use as the conceptual guide for our work throughout this pilot program. And so our focus throughout this program is going to be on preparedness activities. So the things that, as you see on the, the gradient here, those pre-disaster events, things that we can do beforehand that are going to facilitate a streamlined response and faster recovery after that disaster happens. So we're in this, we're really focusing largely on that preparedness element of the time period. and then also on that interim housing period, and helping to essentially facilitate that long-term housing recovery. The sheltering piece is something we'll definitely talk about, but as mentioned, the preparedness piece, we're looking at the front end of what can we do ahead of the disaster to essentially streamline, that response and recovery processes. So we, as part of the disaster housing strategy, Civics, the firm that helped DSHA put this document together, in addition to putting that together, they also put together a really fantastic disaster housing preparedness guide. And so the guide identifies levels of effort for each activity. It helps to, kind of prioritize these different activities for preparedness, and also helps you to assess, local resources and resource gaps. Overall, there's 30 plus different action items categorized into these 6 general categories. So local capacity building and training, housing recovery planning and policy development, land use and development, post-disaster permitting, housing assistance and mitigation programs, and community engagement. And so as part of this, what you'll get to do is kind of work through some of those recommendations, evaluate them, see if it's something that makes sense for your community, see if it's something you're interested in doing. And throughout that, we'll kind of introduce you to those different, recommendations, provide you with some resources, some contextual things as well about, how you can kind of do and fulfill some of those recommendations. So we have Jared from Civics on the call. He was key in putting this document together. So I just wanted to, at this point, just acknowledge he's on the call. Jared, did you have anything you wanted to add in terms of the preparedness guide for folks?
Not really, thanks though. And hi everyone. Just quick introduction, Jared Genova with Civics. We've been supporting Vanessa and DSHA for the past couple of years with all these documents. We're just really excited to be able to share this with you and also get feedback on how to further implement these things. I'd say that, you'll see different tiers of effort here. So the way to think about this is kind of a step-by-step how-to guide, not do all of these at once, but do what you can. So I think that's going to be a big focus of this effort, and we're really excited to help support that rollout. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And yeah, and as mentioned, the Civics team did a really fantastic job putting together this preparedness guide. There's a lot of great resources in there that will help you kind of work through. And as Jared kind of mentioned, there's been a lot of work and lead up to where we're at now. So our hope is to see if we can try and implement some of this stuff, and see what lessons we can learn from that. What works well for you all, what are some things that maybe you're not as comfortable with and are challenges to enact at a local level. So, we'll be getting into the details of all these different preparedness guide activities and things, and kind of sharing some of the resources and different considerations. So stay tuned for more. This will be a big focus of our upcoming workshops. So excited to dig into those details. So to guide the technical assistance work, we put together an MOU. You received an MOU a couple days ago from Jen. So I'm going to pass it over to Jen, and she's going to talk a little bit about what's in that MOU and kind of how we're getting the process started.
Sure, great. Thanks, Colin. So, as we said, I think each of you, the 3 municipalities, received a copy of the MOU last week. It's basically kind of, it's not meant to be anything, scary or particularly legal. It's really more to make sure that we all understand from the get-go kind of what's expected and who's doing what, so that we're all on the same page and make this run as smoothly as possible. And so it really talks about, what IPA is going to do, and it was Colin and I, and in concert with Danielle, and we'll be the primary points of contact. We're going to organize and facilitate the workshops, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, as well as the meetings, regular meetings that happen in cohort kind of sharing that happens as part of phases 2 and 3, as well as the coaching that happens there. In terms of the municipal partners, what we're really asking is, for this to be as successful as possible, is that we also have, a primary point of contact with you, but that we also have this core group who's working through each of the workshops, as well as carrying through with the ordinance preparation and phase 3 activities. We're asking that there be, and we'll talk a little bit about who that core group is on the next slide, but also making sure that the decision makers are involved along the way, because really, again, we're talking about an ordinance preparation. And so to make that go as smoothly as possible, kind of get that input as we are in the development phases, and receiving all of the information in terms of the training to kind of lay that foundation as we move forward. And that'll all just go a lot easier for everyone if we, if we have that kind of consistent participation. And then again, in the MOU, we outline kind of the 3 workshop topics, as well as the deliverables, really, that the vulnerability self-assessment, the capacity self-assessment, which we'll talk about, as well as the ordinance preparation. So if you do have questions on that, we'll take that a little bit at the end, but we are asking that that be signed and returned to us at some point before we get started. So in terms of who should be involved, again, understand that the deliverable, one of the biggest deliverables is really that pre-disaster recovery ordinance. And so you all know your towns best. You know who's really needs to be involved to get those types of ordinances across the finish line. But what we're considering is that ideally we have at least 3 people from each of the municipalities who can be involved in each of the workshops, as well as the phases 2 and 3. And so in terms of those key personnel types, obviously your planners, which we have a couple on the line, which is great, your building code enforcement officials, and then particularly important for the vulnerability assessment part. I'll let Danielle jump in just a second. Any officials with emergency management functions, obviously, again, this is really what it's all kind of revolving around, is that recovery. And then, of course, your town managers, elected officials. We're really happy to see Mayor Collier here as we move forward. But then, knowing that not every town has each of those functions in place, obviously a lot of us wear a lot of different hats. So other people that you could consider, again, are public works people, or your finance people, or even the municipal clerks, if you think that that's appropriate. But really, we just want to get to having that core group that we're working with consistently throughout the whole process. Danielle, did you want to add anything or emphasize?
I think that was a great summary. The building code enforcement official, maybe you would determine on your own whether it's necessary for them to be at every workshop, but I think we feel like they would be particularly helpful for our kind of risk assessment and looking at the vulnerability of housing stock when we focus on that for workshop 2. So they may not be part of the core 3 or 4 people that you have attend all of the workshops. That's just entirely up to you. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll also just add too, if if by chance you're able to send more than 3 people, we are more than happy to accommodate you. So if there are a lot of folks in town that are interested in working on this and they are available to be at the workshops, we can make it work. So but yeah, in theory, it would be best, and we think you'd get the most out of it if we have, kind of a team of 3, give or take, that can hopefully be able to attend the workshops.
Great. All right. And so phase 1, we've talked a little bit about, really starts now and goes, we're hoping to wrap that up by late January 2026. And that's comprised of the 3 cohort workshops, which we'll talk a little bit about scheduling, and the disaster housing exercise, which we'll talk about which is an optional part of it. The 3 workshops are not. The housing exercise is optional, but so the 3 workshops really revolve around that. Again, really deep dive into the housing strategy and preparedness guide. So we know really what those strategies are that we can all implement, and what portions we want to carry forward into phases 2 and 3, or focus on what's most important. As Jared said, everybody's at different levels. And so we expect kind of those different tiers of effort. That's why the guide was made with that basic, intermediate, and advanced efforts in mind. We will then, second workshop will be Danielle's portion in terms of really focusing in on those hazard risk assessment. And so we know, again, like what are the likelihood of those different types of disasters and situations, and then prioritizing those guides, the action items as we move forward. Again, like phase 2 is really going to be about that ordinance preparation, but phase 3 can take a step back and really be any of the guide strategies that you think your town or your municipality is most in need of at this point. Some of that might be community education, but it might also be additional portions of that disaster recovery ordinance, because there are many different components to it, and we may just be only able to pick off 2 or 3 different components as part of the phase 2. And so that will be part of those discussions in terms of phase workshop 3, which will then set us up for the next phases. I think I covered the deliverables. We do have a couple of workshop locations options picked out. Obviously, that will all pivot around when everybody's available and can get together. But we do expect for all 3 of them to be in person. As we move into phases 2 and 3, there may be some options, and we all want to work within all of your schedules. We know everybody's really busy. There may be some more options in phases 2 and 3 to do more online and Zoom type of meetings. But next slide, please. And this goes back to Jared and Vanessa, if you want to talk a little bit about that optional housing workshop.
Sure. Thanks again. This is something we've been working on now for a while, and it's a bit different from other exercises that we've done before. I know some of y'all have already committed to joining us, which is very exciting. This is just stepping back for a second, going back to that continuum, going from an event all the way through to permanent housing. This is an opportunity to test out that strategy. So a lot of the work that is in the disaster housing strategy has to do with coordination, how to request resources, how to get the right tools to the right places at the right time. And after a disaster, things like this can be really confusing, and it can all be kind of muddy. So this is an opportunity in a tabletop exercise format to really workshop some of these decision points and these handoff points. This will be similar to the rest of the work that's being done here, focused on that interim to long-term housing recovery. So again, a lot of tabletop exercises, emergency management work is focused on what's happening right now as the disaster is unfolding. This shines a bit more light on what happens later. So in the weeks, months, years afterwards, to try and get people stabilized again. So this exercise will bring together state, local, county, and also nonprofit organizations that are working in this space to be able to work through a few of these options. This is coming up in just under 3 weeks, right? And in first week of November, which is coming right up. But yeah, this will be one element in this whole curriculum of how to move forward and work together.
Awesome.
I'll just add, yeah, and for the exercise, we're going to have breakout groups, as it says here, and we're going to do that by county to make it as realistic as possible. We really want to reflect who you'll be working with if an actual disaster affects your jurisdiction. So for those who have already RSVP'd, you'll be working with the people that you show up with. So having, again, the right people in the room can really make or break how this exercise goes. So I think the list that was provided earlier about who we encourage you to get on board for this pilot program overall, those same titles, those same roles would be really pertinent during this exercise. Not that you need to have, all 7 positions in the room at the same time, but just understanding what each of those roles can contribute in a situation like this, who can make decisions, who's familiar with ordinances or land use and zoning, understanding who you need to communicate with, because a lot of this is based on communication and coordination. That's all I'll add.
Great. Well, hopefully you all are able to attend that session on November 5th, and feel free to reach out to Vanessa if you have any questions or maybe need the invite link or something like that. So, all right. So pivoting over just to talk a little bit about workshop 1. So workshop 1 is going to be obviously our first one coming up. So the agenda is going to roughly look like this. We're going to start by covering the disaster housing strategy fundamentals. We're going to start really digging into kind of the specifics within the strategy itself so that you can develop a really good understanding of, what the strategy is, what it does, when it's able to be activated, all of those sorts of considerations. So we'll start to talk about those. We'll move into kind of understanding local preparedness functions. So this, in what we'd like to talk about here, is just understanding existing conditions. What are we currently doing at a local level? What different preparedness options do we have on the table, and what does the strategy call for? We'll kind of start digging into some of those details. And then we're also going to focus on the latter part of our session. We'll focus on planning for response and recovery. So you'll get a chance to hear from some subject matter experts who have been involved in response and recovery operations. And the idea there will be to help you kind of understand what you'd be up against, if a disaster were to happen. So that way you kind of understand a little bit of why we're doing this preparedness. So we are expecting this to be, and all of these sessions generally, we're expecting to be 3-hour sessions. They'll feature, guest speakers, some training, some self-activity, some self-guided, some, kind of facilitated things. Lunch will be included, and we're hoping to do this within the next month, which I hope is feasible for your schedule. Before we scheduled this date, we reached out to Tim Cooper, and Tim was able to reserve October 29th just as a potential date. I'm going to go ahead and assume, given that we're about 2 weeks out, I'm going to assume this was probably wishful thinking on our part, and that maybe there's something that comes up. But I figured I'd just start by asking, does anybody have major conflicts on October 29th that would prevent this from happening? And if so, then we'll start picking some other dates down the line.
Hi, Colin, it's Christy. I'm just going to speak up on behalf of the town of Milton. So maybe November would be best to consider, because I know specifically for us, unless council approves the MOU, we won't be able to participate.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I figured we were probably a little early on that end, so I just wanted to throw it out there, but I think you're right though that, approving the MOU is probably a good idea first. So, okay. So then what we'll probably do then is we'll give you all time to review the MOU, get council approval, all of that sort of stuff. I think then we'd look towards probably the week of either November 10th through the 14th or the week of November 17th to the 21st. So those are the 2 weeks before the week of Thanksgiving. We'd hope to be able to schedule it in that range. So what we'll do afterwards is we'll follow up with a scheduling poll, and we'll send that out to the group so that we get some dates and times down. I just figured though, right off the bat, if anyone's able to look at their calendar, does anybody have anything in those 2 weeks? Maybe it's travel, maybe it's a conference. Are there any of those dates that we can just cancel off right off the bat so I don't even have to bother giving it to you as an option?
November 19th, if I can jump ahead, is a pretty big Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and then November 18th is a county council meeting here at the county. So
Okay.
Thursdays and Fridays are better. So the week before, that's the week before Thanksgiving. So.
Okay, great.
And Colin, I will be out that whole week from the 16th through the 20th.
16th through the 20th. Okay.
Yep.
Tim is about 16th through 20th.
Tim, does that mean you're here on the 21st?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a date we can keep in mind if nobody has a direct conflict on the 21st. Perhaps we can make that our Friday.
No. Hold on a second. I was thinking October, but now I'm thinking November. Hold on, let me just check.
Also, I guess just to note that Veterans Day, the county is closed. So just that's the week of the November 10th through 14th. So just a note.
Great. Yeah, that's helpful too. So yeah, given we've got a lot of people to coordinate around, what we're going to do is send out, a scheduling poll, and this poll will go probably, I think we'll take it all the way from basically November up through the holidays. So there will be some times in December included as well. So if it doesn't work out that we can do it before Thanksgiving, we'll look to after. I know, that time in between the holidays can be a little tricky, but hoping that we would be able to potentially, get at least this first workshop in. We'd like to try and get that in before, the holiday rush and everything. Just because we want to make sure we get things moving with the workshops, and that you guys have some time to think, and kind of plan for, what your eventual ordinance might look like, or, what any of these other action items you decide on. So yeah, Vanessa's got those dates noted down in the chat. I took them down as well. So we'll go ahead and follow up with you all with a poll to grab a few potential dates. And hopefully we're able to find one that we can at least get, a good showing from everyone. And appreciate all your patience with the scheduling things. This is probably the trickiest thing I think about coordinating all of this, is just trying to figure out a good date that works for everyone, because we want to make sure everyone's involved. We want to be able to start soon. So it'll be a tricky weave, but I think we can figure it out.
Colin, I am available the 21st. I don't know if the facility is available.
Okay, that's fine. I think, Tim, it would be great if that facility is available, but I think we've got some backup options as well. We've got the Lewis campus, and I was thinking, just to make it fair to everyone, if we've got a site in Georgetown, we've got a site in Lewis, we'll take a look at the Milton Public Library too for our Milton folks. So maybe we can do one in each of the different towns. So we're going to keep that. I'm hoping the 21st works, November 21st. We'll keep that one in mind, but we'll send out the poll, get everyone's dates and times figured out, and we'll circle back on that. So yeah, next steps. I guess in advance of us sending over that doodle poll, we're going to want to figure out basically who you think would be your group of 3 or more, hypothetically. So we'd like you to first get us maybe your participant list with the contact information for the folks that you think will be involved, and designate maybe one of those people as your kind of primary point of contact. Keep in mind, like we said, we're aiming for 3 to be involved for each municipality. We understand there might be some constraints that make that challenging for all the workshops. So you can feel free to, put in some like alternate people who may fill in if someone's absent or someone's able to I can't make one of the workshops or something like that. So we're hoping you could get this to us maybe by the end of the day, Monday, October 20th, if that's not too big of an ask. Hopefully that'll give you guys the weekend. But also totally understand, as Christy mentioned, you know, if you're still waiting for council approval and this needs to be a council discussion that comes up, let us know about that. I guess I'd add as step number 3 as well, maybe even this would be step 1 probably if we could reorder these, but the MOU piece would be, you know, the first element of it. So reach out if you have any questions about that MOU. So I guess that'll be step 1. Step 2 would be to give us your contact information for who's going to participate. And then once we have those contacts in mind, we'll send out a poll to all those that are able to be on that contact list to gauge some of those potential workshop dates. So that is essentially kind of where we're going from here. So just to recap, take a look at the MOU, let us know if you have questions, and let us know when you're able to finalize that and officially approve. If you can get us at least a preliminary contact list, you know, obviously based on when we schedule things, and I understand some people may not be available during that particular time, but if you could get us, you know, just get us an idea of what your project team would be. And then once we get that project team, we'll send you a poll, you answer the poll, and then we'll get something on the calendar for workshop 1. And then we'll go from there for workshops 2 and 3. As mentioned, we're hoping to squeeze the workshops in by the end of January. We want them to happen kind of close together. We want them to build upon each other. They're going to be related, you know, they're going to kind of flow together. So we don't want to break them up too much in between. We're hoping maybe, you know, 3 weeks to a month in between each of them. So we'll probably have to, you know, do at least one of these in January. But we'll see in terms of workshop 2, we'll see if it's possible based upon when we can do this first one, if we can, you know, fit it in between Thanksgiving and the holidays. So, so yeah, with that, that's pretty much all we have for today, but we wanted to open it up for questions because we assume you all probably have some questions you would like to ask, any clarity we can offer. So, so at this point, I'll just open up the floor. If anyone has anything they wanted to chime in with, you can feel free to use the raise hand function or just hop off mute, whatever works. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I know this is starting to get in the weeds early, but I guess just looking at, you know, what the strategies are and all that, is there going to be any funding for any of this stuff? You know, like temporary housing and where we put temporary housing. Kids can't just put temporary housing without having some kind of infrastructure. So I'm just kind of curious if this whole process is to formulate, you know, because is this an attempt to supplement or, you know, whatever FEMA funds that probably may not be there? I mean, I'm just curious because you know, when we talk about temporary housing, that's a very expensive piece of the pie, probably one of the most expensive pieces. And as far as where we're putting it is not that, you know, we would have a challenge, but it wouldn't be that bad. But again, you know, where we can get these temporary, you know, the trailers from or whatever, and, you know, how we get, you know, because the hookup's going to cost money and things like that. Anyway, that's just, you know, something that I'm thinking about as far as this program and how we're going to be able to, you know, participate in it that way.
Sure.
But yeah. Okay, that's all I had for the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, good question. Vanessa, do you want to chime in?
I'll start. It looks like Jared might want to add to whatever I say. Real short answer, Tom, is no, we're not going to fund any kind of interim housing through this program. We are providing the technical assistance free of cost to you guys because, like I said, I just think it's a very important cause. And the stronger we are at the local level, the more prepared we are as a state. As far as interim housing preparations specifically, I think some of the groundwork that can be done ahead of time is free to do. It would be identifying potential plots of land to put interim housing. It would be possibly forming MOUs with the owners of said land, because not everything is just publicly available. It would be having ordinances specifically to accommodate that plan of action, or making sure you don't have anything in code that inhibits your ability to set up temporary housing, whether it's on people's privately owned plots of land or it's in a congregate area. So it would be more to think through what your options are and identify paths forward specific to your municipality so that you're best prepared if ever a disaster does affect you. Jared, did you want to tack onto that?
I can, but that's pretty much everything. I would say that one other knock-on effect for something like this, and just from a planning perspective, having each of these enabling actions already set up means that it's going to be a lot easier to find those interim housing providers or seek the funding to do so. You're not going to want to arrange all of the things that Vanessa just described while you're trying to make a deal to get housing built, assembled, or delivered, something like that. So whether it's FEMA, obviously we're seeing lots of changes at FEMA right now, or it's, you know, a nonprofit organization or some other type of group that would be providing it, getting all of these things set and more certain in advance is going to make that process a lot easier and cheaper in the end.
Does that answer your question, Tom, or did you have any follow-up thoughts about that?
No, that's what I expected to hear. So thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the workshops specifically, or about the preparedness guide, or even the MOU? Because Jen would be a really good person to ask questions about the MOU to while she's on this call. But we want you guys to leave here feeling like really confident about what this is and understanding how to talk about it and what you're signing up for. Go ahead, Tom.
Yep, sorry. The town of Milton, we do have like an emergency management guide, you know, it's got some stuff in it that talks about some of these things, and a lot of places do have that. And I don't recall if the one for the county, I'm assuming they have that in their guide, because they're the full, we rely on them to support us through emergencies, because they have the resources, they have the people, they have everything, you know, there. But I'm just curious of why, or is this, shouldn't this be integrated into that program? I mean, rather than be just, you know, be by itself, because it would be easier to integrate, you know, because a lot of places the housing portion is integrated into the emergency management system. I'm just talking from my experience in Alaska. So we had, you know, all that built in to our emergency management plan, which had housing and all that other stuff.
You're saying it was built in at the county level?
Yeah, well, yeah, we had boroughs, but same as the county level, but yes, but so our plan had we didn't have a separate housing organization like the state does. But as far as the county now, the county that I was in was actually the borough, the Kodiak Island Borough, which is, you know, only 13,000 people, but they're spread out over this 2.5 times the size of the state of Delaware. That's where, you know what I'm saying? So, but we did have plans that had all the layers of what you think about emergency management, but also the housing was thrown in there, and we already had a lot of MOUs built in with either or the borough. We owned a lot of like schools and things like that. So obviously most of those were the shelters, you know, because they're out of the areas where they'd be, you know, because we had to deal mainly with earthquakes and tsunamis. That was our big deal. But anyway, so all that was built into that emergency management plan. So I just thought I'd throw it out there.
No, that's a really
I
good comment, Tom. Yeah. Danielle, you
might
want
just chime in here and say, I don't think there's anything precluding a municipality from eventually updating their emergency operations plan if they want to integrate the housing component. It makes a lot of sense. There's certainly important ties there. So think of this as informing future updates of your plan, including maybe at the county level.
And Sussex County is partnering with us throughout this pilot program. So they're not one of the cohort. They will be participating in the workshops, both as subject matter experts, but also as recipients, right? They can learn some, they can give some. But they're here to kind of help you guys by referencing their plans and making sure that your plans are in alignment with their plans. They don't need a pre-disaster recovery ordinance, but we're talking to them about the kind of plan that would benefit them at the county level, and maybe we can support them with that. But the point of them being here on this call and of them participating throughout the program is exactly what you're saying, or what I'm interpreting what you're saying as, Tom, which is to make sure that all of those components and all those aspects of recovery are accounted for, whether it's at the local level or at the county level, and to make sure that there's they complement one another. We're not doing the same thing multiple times at different levels. We're feeding from the local level plan into the county plan, or you're under their umbrella if you're not adopting their plan verbatim.
Yeah, and I'll also just add on to that too. This is the first year we're doing this. It's going to be a pilot, and so part of what we want to do through this is figure out what is the best way to work on these things at the municipal level. Is it, in kind of discussing how we approach this a couple months ago when we were, kind of talking about formulating this program. One of you might be familiar, Tom, but the state recently has a requirement that, resilience has to be factored into comprehensive plans. So, for example, maybe the long-term recommendation from the work that we do is that, the state should be working with them during the comprehensive planning process to, integrate that in, or maybe it's something that comes up in the hazard mitigation planning process at the county level. So I think ultimately point taken, right? Like there's a lot of ways that this can nest in and fit within already kind of operating systems and things like that. And I think what we're hoping to do with the pilot is figure out what's the best way to go about that. Is it that we should, kind of be working in, different different sequences of time to work with, when you're doing your comprehensive plan process, or, et cetera. So yeah, I just say, like, let's put a pin in that. Let's think about that throughout the process. And then, if you guys get to phases 2 and 3 and you're thinking like, oh, well, we really want to update our plan and include some of this, stuff in our chapter there. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we're open to some flexibility on that, especially. And yeah, I think throughout the process, we'll get a good perspective on, where this can fit in well with other kind of planning processes that you might already do. So.
Does anyone from Sussex, I don't want to not give you guys the chance to speak since the county's being included in this conversation. Do you want to either tack onto that question or provide any additional context, or do you think we covered it?
Tim, are you online? Do you? I don't know which one of us wants to take that one.
I think it's like a collaborative effort, right? There's land use, there's emergency management, there's housing and community development. So anyone, please.
Yeah, I think, well, Vanessa, I think you covered kind of our role quite well, but I think we're also very interested to focus on the housing, or at least I specifically am, for the housing piece of this disaster recovery conversation. So I think we're all really planning to learn and take in as much as everybody else that's here. So we're looking forward to it and hoping we can be of help if that is an option.
You guys are definitely going to be of help. Just wait.
Any other questions from the group at this stage? And I'll just say, if you think of any other questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us. I didn't include our emails on here, but you should have all of our emails. I'm sure you've gotten a bunch from Vanessa. You got the MOU from Jen. Just dump mine in the chat here as well, and I can do Jen's. So there's us on the IPA team, and then Vanessa's as well as what. So yeah, if there's not any other questions, that's what we've got for today. So like I said, we will be following up with you all. First of all, on the MOU, let us know if you have an idea of maybe what the timeline is for that to be adopted for you all, or for it to be approved. Let us know. If you're able to give us an idea of who's going to be part of your project team, keep in mind we're looking for 3. More than 3 is welcome, though. If you're able to get us that by the close of business on Monday, the 20th, that would be fantastic. And then once we have everyone's project teams, we'll go ahead and send out a poll to get the first workshop on the calendar sometime between now and the end of the year, essentially. And once we can get that on the calendar, we'll figure out kind of the pacing for workshops 2 and 3. But focusing on getting that first one scheduled for the time being. So with that, unless anyone else has any other questions, you're all free to go for the rest of the day. Thanks again for joining. Thanks again for being part of the program. We're really excited to kick this off. I think it'll be really cool. We've been talking about this for a couple months now, and it's really exciting to see it all come to fruition, and great to see you all interested in doing this work too. So thanks again. And please let us know if we're able to answer any other questions, any concerns. Don't hesitate to reach out. And we'll look forward to hearing from you all with your project teams and approved MOUs, and then we'll get you over the scheduling poll.
Colin, thank you for coordinating this. Everyone, I just want to underscore that we're really intentionally trying to meet you where you are, where your municipality is. So this is not a one size fits all. Maybe Milton will have different needs than Lewis, will have different needs than Georgetown, and that's okay. Just because you guys are in a cohort together does not mean your preparedness planning is going to look the same as your neighbors. So we hope that you lean on one another to look at what maybe someone else is already doing that you could incorporate, or learn from hardship, or work off of each other to create something totally new. And we want to be a support for that. We want to guide that. And we just really encourage open communication. Truly reach out with the questions. No question is a dumb question. We want to help get you guys going here. We really want to see an end result. We want everyone to feel good about their recovery plans, right? We want to feel like if there's flooding, if there's a tornado, if something happens, that you guys feel confident in your capability of helping your community get through that. So anything we can do along the way, please just reach out. Again, please prioritize those MOUs, but ask Jen, ask Colin if you have questions about them, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.